We sit down with creators, founders, and entrepreneurs who are shaping tomorrow to get an inside view on how they think, lead, and act, and the struggles that go with it. I'm Nick Hughes, and this is Founders Live Conversations. Today we sit down with Nicole Donnelly of SaltaWaffle to talk about social media, multiple startups, and the ups and downs of being a founder. Hey, Nicole.
Hi, Nick.
Welcome to Founders Live.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. We're here at Collective Chemistry, and we have beakers for glasses. Cheers.
Cheers to chemistry.
Nicole.
Yes.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Yes. So we're going to talk about founders, the founder life, being an entrepreneur, everything. I know you have a lot of experience in this, but before we get to that, I really want to go back to just like where you grew up and where did you study, at university or college, and then how you became an entrepreneur.
All right. Well, I was born in Ridgecrest, California, which is in the middle of nowhere, and we lived in a mobile home on a dirt road.
Whoa.
And we would go on picnics in Death Valley. Like, that's where I grew up. It was not a place where entrepreneurship or anybody did anything that exciting.
Was it like a very very unpopulated area, not a lot of people, dirt road?
Yeah, there were 2 kids in my grade.
2 kids?
2 kids.
How many were in the school?
28 maybe, K through 12.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was a really small area, and that was in the bigger city. The closest city to us had 600 people. And I used to want to be an inventor. And so I would make things for my neighbors and deliver them in their mailboxes. So, the licorice ropes? Yeah. I took a bunch of those, and I took these strawberry baskets and saran wrap, and somehow I made licorice dispensers. And I walked down this dirt road, and I put them in my neighbors' mailboxes. And what they must have thought when they got them, I have no idea. Because I didn't know the neighbors, because we were on a dirt road and everyone was far apart, and it was a little scary to go talk to them.
That is crazy.
So I always wanted to be an inventor.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what entrepreneur was, at the time.
It's a strange word, right? Like, even growing up, it's like, what? I remember trying, early on, wondering what the heck that word meant, when you're 8, 10, 15 years old, trying to figure out, what is an entrepreneur? But early on, you were creative, you wanted to invent. What do you think what drove that? I mean, was it just curiosity or what?
Yeah, I think infinite curiosity for me I just wanted to make things I don't know. I just wanted to be an inventor. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. I mean, my grandpa, he would make things out of wood. And so he carved mock-ups for the space shuttle. And
that's cool.
Yeah, so I think I got my maker roots kind of from that. And we always had tools to play with. So a drill press in the garage, I could go out there and drill holes in things. And a table saw, so I could sit there and cut wood.
It's not dangerous.
No, not at all. I survived, and I remember getting my first tool set, I think when I was probably, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years old. And so I'd go out in the backyard and put nails in everything. Right,
just because.
Yeah, just because.
Yeah.
So I always liked that physical creativity.
Interesting. And so clearly, you were growing up there. At what point did you get out of there into maybe a larger city and going to college and whatnot?
So we moved to Utah when I was 10. My dad got a job there. So then we went from 2 kids in my grade to 90 kids.
Yep.
And I liked it there, and I liked having all the people around. And we were living in the suburbs, but I graduated from high school with about 1,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you went from very small to quite large. Yeah.
Yeah. And in school, I remember the business classes were kind of for the dumb jocks. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't where the smart people went. And now I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish I would have taken some of those finance classes and things like that. I worked in the computer lab in school. I worked in the Mac lab, and so I got into the creative outlets that way. I studied graphic design and photography.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you went to college, what did you study at that point in time?
So I did my 3 things. It was a Bachelor of Integrated Studies in History, German, and Photography. So
interesting.
I speak German.
Huh. Well, I don't. So
and some Spanish.
Unfortunately, this conversation is going to be in English.
Yeah, well.
And so which one of those three caught your attention and your focus and passion the most?
None of them really did.
Really?
No, so right after I finished school, I was only 20 years old. I finished really quickly. And
Jeez, yeah.
I started snowboarding full time because I took a snowboarding class at school. And I moved to Park City. I lived in my car and started snowboarding. And I started competing in snowboarding my first full-time season. And I was on the Park City snowboard team. And I lived in my car and traveled around and competed in snowboarding. And so
That's really cool.
yeah, in that I had the hustle. So to get into something like the X Games, I had to submit videos, and at that time it wasn't like not many people were doing it.
Yeah.
And so I look at my old videos and they're so lame, and my tricks like a method, like it's so incredibly lame, but it's what got me in.
Yeah.
And then when I was teaching skiing and snowboarding, I was selling helmets out of my locker. And as a kid, I sold cookies.
Right.
I also had a hot dog stand at like outside of events.
So yeah, you've been entrepreneurial your entire life.
I have, and nobody in my family was, and it wasn't like a thing that you do.
Yeah.
So I was always kind of looking, but I didn't have a career path. I was snowboarding.
Yeah.
And I was happy.
I mean, that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah.
I look back and I don't have a lot of regrets, but I wish I had the 2 years of ski bum.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, when it was okay to be at the time of
At
your
that
life,
age?
it's okay to be a ski bum. Not right now, not in my life now.
No.
But man, so you just yeah, what's one memory or one thing that you took from that really applies today?
It's fun and just loving what I do all the
Yeah.
time. So whenever I'm teaching a class, I think about how to make it fun. And something I just started doing is acro yoga.
Acro yoga, what's that? Acrobatic yoga?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where I'm kind of flying in the air. They have the flyers, the person on top and the base.
Yeah.
And so doing a handstand on someone else's hands and being upside down.
That is
It's
intense.
so fun. And
Yeah.
so I try to combine physical fun things with the work that I do. And at Vancouver Startup Week, I led a growth hacking session for 2 hours. We did a workshop. And in the middle of it, we took a break and I did acro with a business friend of mine. And so, of course, we get the most tweets and we get the most love out of
Right.
any of the sessions because we did something really cool and fun and interesting. And so I always try to bring that to any workshops that I do,
Yeah.
any business. It's got to be fun and enjoyable. It shouldn't be painful and hard.
Yeah. No, as you know, that's part of what we do, and with Founders Live is one of the core values is I call it the no name tags, but it's really about fun and just doing things do random fun things because life is too short to just be following the rules. And business can be a little stiff sometimes. It can be corporate, and I think as a startup and as early stage entrepreneurs, you have the leeway to do things your way and maybe bend the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
But I like how you took from what you're early in your life and you're we're going to create fun and we're going to do random things and we're going to bring uniqueness into the experience. That's so important. And I think when you start building a team and onboarding more employees and growing a company, instilling that fun factor into serious, we're actually building a company here and this is serious, but fun factor. I think that then puts you above and beyond other areas or other companies they would think about working at, or joining.
Yeah. And when I had my first company, so I started it kind of as a fluke. I met my daughter's dad in the off season, got knocked up, had a kid, and my daughter had diaper rash really bad. So I'd cut my snowboard socks off, pull them up over her knees, it protect her knees when she was crawling, have a naked bum. We'd go out in public and people thought it was so cute. And so I would wear them all the time. I wore them on my arms, I'd wear them on my legs, and she would wear them too. So fun and cute. And within 3 years, we were in 85 countries and in all Target stores.
Wow, what were they called?
Baby legs.
Baby legs.
Yeah. And with the team that I had, everybody was so committed to each other and to having a good time together. And so we did things on a monthly basis. We did a potluck and we always had chips and salsa. That was a requirement, pretty much, chips and
Staple,
salsa. Yeah. And we did happy grams. So throughout the month, we would write things that correlated to our values that, made each other happy. and like how we helped each other out.
Yeah.
And then we'd read those in the meeting or potlucky meeting, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we tried to do things that were fun and different. And so whenever we went to trade shows, it was always a good time too.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm challenged with how to make something fun when it's so dry and boring.
Yeah.
You know, but like I even have fun math, and I can make business planning math fun. You know, I don't know. There's a lot of ways to make it fun, but that's the thing that I try to carry throughout is that playfulness.
That's great. Yeah. No, it's important, and you know, I think it's just, I don't know, life's too short to like not have fun, especially in the hours that we're not at home, we're not with our significant other, you're with your coworkers. You should be enjoying your life, building a company and working, not enjoying it, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. So, all right, so the baby legs, you know, was that your first foray into this life called entrepreneurship and as a founder?
That was my first legitimate business that I paid taxes on.
We won't talk about the illegitimate ones, you know,
we call those a hustle, a side hustle.
Yeah.
That was my first real business.
Okay. And then from that, was there some successive ones, or you know what followed on from that?
Yeah. So after that, I started a social media company called SaltaWaffle.
Okay. Let's
Fun.
go there.
Yeah, fun again. And the reason it was salty is I've lived by the water since I moved to Seattle, and it's kind of that salty sailor attitude that lets you be fun and have some language, drop some F-bombs, whatever you want. Like, it's salty.
Yeah.
And waffles, well, I want a throwdown with Bobby Flay. I will make the best waffles you've ever tasted. So we can do that next time. Yeah. And I would serve waffles to clients. So I even went into this, you know, financial investment firm where everyone's over 60, and I made waffles. All the old men are coming into the lunchroom, and they're so excited for waffles because it just smells so good.
Yeah.
And it's about the emotional connection around food too. And one year at the GeekWire Awards, we did a little guerrilla waffle making in the back. So they turn the lights down and they're giving the awards, and we're back there making waffles. And there's so many tweets about, where's the bread? Where's the cookies? I smell something.
Smell that?
Yeah. And then we had one of those like automatic soap dispensers filled with maple syrup. So people were coming by and getting their waffles until we got shut down. You know, so always just coming up with really fun ways to it's like to get attention, but also to create connection with people.
Right. Yeah. So let's go into SaltaWaffle and the problem that you're looking to solve. Social media is challenging, right? And it's changing all the time.
Yeah.
Most companies they just have challenges. This is not like their core competency. So what was the problem that you were actually solving with this company?
Yeah. So I think it's my God-given gift to do marketing and social media. And
we all have our God-given gifts.
Yes, and that is mine, and I can bring it to any company, and I can create a strategy, train people up, hire people, get the execution plan down. And the reason why I do it is because I want them to authentically connect with their customers and provide value to the customers on a regular basis. And if they can do that, they're going to have a brand that sticks around for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, and so I want to increase the connection between the companies and their customers, so the customers feel cared about and that the brands really do care. And so like how we do it is with some tools, especially now. Like, since I started the company in 2009, there's been such a huge evolution. It would cost $10,000 a month to do what you can do for $300 a month now.
Wow.
Yeah. The automation tools are so amazing that you can use now that it makes it even easier to do in-house with companies. But for me, it is about that connection, creating the emotional connection. And that's what I love to do.
Right, and so, not to be generalistic, but like, what is the best use of social media? No matter if you're a B2C or B2B, social media for a company, and clearly for a person, it's slightly different, but for a company, what's the use of social media?
What's the use?
Like, what is the one thing or a few things that companies should use social media for, and how can it grow their business?
Well, it's for taking care of their customers. It's customer service. Yeah. And it can grow the business by so there's 6 basic emotional needs. When you meet those 6 needs of your customer, when you meet those, You're going to have people who are really tied to your brand. And so when you design campaigns like that, so you might meet what each need, we're going to meet one on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday,
Right.
or it might be once a week. But it's to emotionally connect with the customers. And so then sales are a given.
Right.
And sales will result if you connect with people. And it's about knowing how to and the messaging that does connect with people, the type of messaging.
But listen to what you're saying though. You're saying emotionally connect with your customers, which most businesses don't even think about emotionally on that level, right? To emotionally connect. We, as typical sales, it's like we need to go sell these customers and get more revenue in our bank account. But what you're saying is no. It's at a different level. You have to connect with them. You have to emotionally identify with them first before the sale even happens. That's what you're saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, or it's part of the sales process.
Right.
Because now people are so inundated with so much information, you're going to hear what you care about and you're going to listen to more of. So if we're on a phone call with each other, I'm not just going to spew stuff at you and sell you all the time.
Right.
I need to provide you with really good stuff that you're interested in, and it might not be my stuff all the time. I might tell you about my friend's company and they're doing cool things. I might tell you about something over here, this event that's happening, and it benefits your life. So then I have your ear. I have your ear for a really long time, and you might not be deciding on hiring me for whatever or paying for my services, but by the time that you need what I have, I am the top of mind for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it is about staying top of mind with the customer and really providing value and understanding that customers now tend to need 18 touch points before conversion.
18.
And
that's through like advertising, social media, email communications.
Yeah.
18.
Wow. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But there is a huge opportunity with that because not many people are doing it well. And when I go to these angel pitch events and I'll see, 20 companies pitch, maybe one or two will have a marketing competency. If my LinkedIn feed is terribly boring, a couple people stand out. And so it is really easy to get the ear if you are listening and if you're paying attention to it. And so many don't until, then you get into reputation management.
Well, let's go there. What is reputation management?
Yeah.
And what is reputation management is the first question.
Yeah, so reputation management would come at a time when someone hits like crisis spot. You can start early, but a lot of times people will pop up. Like I was on a call today about it, and somebody said, we have this person that's been writing all this negative content for 2 years. Now they're the number 2 result for our search term.
Yep.
So what do we do? I'm like, well, this is going to take you 12 to 18 months to repair. And this is what we can do about it, and there's the math that goes behind it. And then again, it's that connecting with the customers so that they're going to share more often because this company hadn't gotten press for 2 years.
Right.
So there wasn't anything great driving value to their site. They had no blog, they had no real interaction with who would be potential customers. Even this is before they're selling public. So it's, and some people, they're selling something, they get bad reviews. And then they have to go in, and deal with the bad reviews, low Yelp scores, things like that. And if you're hitting on the emotional needs of your customers, all 6 emotional needs on a regular basis, you're golden.
Right. So what you're saying is there are so many aspects of social media, whether just to lump it in together with SEO and, search engine stuff, social media activity, all this it should be a very, very big focus for a company. And so SaltaWaffle product. So tell us about the product real quick.
Yeah, so we use a product. If you go to the site, it looks like it's software as a service, though we do service also.
Okay.
So for the higher end clients, but after working with so many big companies, like billion-dollar companies and multi-million, there's been an evolution in tools. And now the small companies can do the same things that the big companies used to pay thousands of dollars a month to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm committed with Salty to bringing this service to the little guys so that they can do it themselves. They'll get some training, and it's easy peasy.
Yeah.
And then for the bigger companies, we'll work with them on a limited basis. And some of it's reputation management or just getting them set up, but usually it's getting them set up and then extricating ourselves so that they can do it on their own. Because I believe that social media is best done in-house.
Sure.
And not hired out on a permanent basis.
Right.
Because it's the heart. It's you're communicating the heart of your company outward.
Interesting.
Sometimes you need a creative injection, and training. And that's what we bring.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to transition a little bit. And, this is Founders Live.
Yes.
And as we all know on Founders Live, there's a lot of great content around, aspects of being a founder, some challenges and whatnot. So first question is, you've been doing this for a while now. You've started a number of companies. How have you handled work-life balance or lack of there?
Yeah.
Basically, how have you handled the life of a founder when it's up and down roller coaster and it's really, really challenging?
It is. Balance is an illusion. Mm-hmm. I look at my balance, so my number one KPI from the time my daughter was 5 until she hit high school this year was that I would be there for her 90% of the time after school. Because in her younger years, I traveled a ton with baby legs. Mm-hmm. And I was gone a lot. And one period was 3 months and I was home for 10 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, of course, mom guilt, feeling like the worst mom ever. And I just, at that point, I recalibrated things. Mm-hmm. And it was I would just want to be there for her after school. And so then she went to bed relatively early when she was younger, and then I'd stay up late and work.
Yeah.
And I look at this balance kind of on a weekly basis, or if I look at 90% of the time, maybe I'm gone for a week here or a few days there, but if the average is 90%, then I'm doing okay.
Right.
So that's my own managing myself. And I want to be able to be there for her, on field trips, and doing those fun things. And I knew, that particular time for her, I would want to be more available. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to miss out on anything. Right. And so I did miss out on some professional opportunities, and I chose that. And I chose to make less money during that time.
Right.
And chose to spend more time with my daughter.
But it sounds like you optimized for better life or an energy about your life that was higher, for the higher good versus most income.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're better off for that.
The relationship that I have with my daughter is fantastic.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Right.
and she knows I love her. We have such a good time together. We enjoy each other's company so much. And now she works 3 days a week after school.
Oh, cool.
So I don't see her.
So now I can work more.
Yes,
But
now I can work more.
The point is, do you even miss those business opportunities? Do you even remember the things that you possibly missed?
No, I don't.
Okay, so that's the point, right?
No.
You might always regret with family and friends or, partner if you don't spend enough time, but the business opportunities just pass us by.
Yeah.
You're not going to remember I missed that deal or that meeting. It's crazy, right?
I have no recollection of any of that.
So important. So you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, so tell us about Spring. I think this is important. And then we're going to get into some of the things around how you interact with entrepreneurs, coaching them, and some of the issues that they deal with.
Yeah. So I, for the last 10 years, have been involved in accelerator programs. Mm-hmm. And I worked with EO Accelerator, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and volunteered in that and worked with companies all over the world with EO. And then when I moved to Vancouver and I was starting my 4th company, and it was Happy Camper, the emotional intelligence education. So, of course, I entered this program, the accelerator program, and I looked here in Seattle for a program to do, and there's nothing. There's nothing that no accelerator would take me because it wasn't big enough.
Right.
I want to reach 1 billion people. How is that not big enough? But it's not tech, And so I found Spring. And in Spring, I was connected with people who cared about making an impact on the world and would throw all the resources to making an impact. So I needed to talk to a lawyer, a couple different types of lawyers a couple times, and I got introduced easily. And I put the word out to my different networks, and the Spring network always came through for me quickly.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah. And I ended up putting that business on the back burner, and I launched Spring in Seattle. And so as the Spring City partner in Seattle, because the ecosystem here needed something that was industry agnostic, that didn't have a revenue qualifier, that could support people, because like I had spent the prior 8 years supporting other companies in this model that I didn't fit into anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, where's my home? Where are my people? You know, where's my community? And that's where I found Spring. And so we had people who were realtors, like commercial, residential. We had food, we had tech, consumer products. And so everybody, like that, they're at the same stage, and we can support them with, half of it is sales and marketing training. But we also do business model. We do the fun math. And make sure that it's a sustainable model. Yeah. Business model, canvas, all of those things, the basics, and do workshops. And I love doing that because I say with my first business is my $1 million MBA. You know, I learned a lot of really expensive lessons.
Yeah. And so Spring is virtual, physical?
It's both.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have physical classes and we have virtual. And we go into co-working spaces and do lunch and learns. All over town. We do it up in Vancouver too. And so like one day a week, I'm the CMO for the global organization. And then I run Seattle with my partners, Samantha and Peter.
Cool.
Yeah, and I love it because I get to dip my toes in or fingers into all these different businesses and like have a peek, and I can contribute my marketing expertise. You know, one of the gals, we worked on her Facebook ads in class, and she 10 times her revenue in our class.
10 times.
10 times. Then she couldn't supply enough, so she had to like cap her ads at this certain amount because her supply was running out.
Wow.
Yeah, and so for me,
that's a good testimonial.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm so excited when somebody else wins like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so okay, you interface with a lot of entrepreneurs and founders.
Yeah.
What if you could sum up, like, what is there one or two main issues or challenges they seem to be coming up against that maybe it's just like you just seem to be giving the same response or answer?
Well, I'm the marketing person. It's always a marketing problem. Okay. It's like what's going on with LinkedIn or Facebook ads or whatever. Yeah. And it's really connecting with the customers and not selling them. And that's the biggest thing that people have to change their mindset about is how do I authentically connect with my customers? Yep. And how do I be myself in this expression? And they might be shy in tech and think that they have to put themselves there, but it's like there's so many different ways to provide value. And it doesn't have to come from you exposing your life or anything like that. And it's finding the compelling story that will inspire people to engage. Yeah,
right. And it's interesting. I mean, as you know, like I'm in connection with and in touch with so many founders as well. And I noticed that there's quite a few that they have an idea. And there's like the Grand Canyon between an idea and like executing on it, like really building a company.
Yeah.
So how would you coach someone through the like, oh, I think this is a really cool thing, let's build it, to actually getting traction and they're growing? Like that's a Grand Canyon, but like there's a lot of people here and not a lot of people here. So how do they get through that valley?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of leadership training, and I asked my girlfriend, I was like, what do you think I'm good at? She's like, well, I've never seen somebody execute like you do. We could be talking about flying bikes at lunch, and you're flying bikes in the neighborhood or by dinner time. You know, you see it out there flying bikes. So I don't understand like that gap for me personally, and I just start doing it and doing the work. And what I see, the mental gap that's created is analyzing all that shit in between. You know, like just do it. Try it and experiment and fail. Yeah. And it's that whole thing, like it's all a big lab, and you just experiment, and it's okay to fail. It's okay. Right. And again, like failure too is a word I don't really like or relate to, because from my snowboarding background, you go off a jump so many times and practice and fall and hurt yourself, but you never fail. And you never fail when you fall. You break bones and whatever, but it's not failure, it's your learning. Yeah. You know, and you're just getting better at it. And so there's that analytical gap that's created. Instead of just going a little ways and trying something. Right. Because if you don't try and sell somebody your stuff, like you're not ever going to know that it's good.
You don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, what I'm getting, which is amazing. So let's go back to your childhood.
Okay.
You tried, and you just tried things.
Yeah.
You learned when you were like putting all that stuff in the mailboxes and you're selling stuff, like you were trying things and you had no fear of failure because you were just like, why not?
Yeah.
And I really think you developed that muscle very early.
Yeah.
And some people didn't, right?
Yep.
So then they become adults and they're like, oh, I really want to start this thing. I think this idea is great.
Yeah.
But they haven't developed that muscle of no failure, just try, like, okay, I'm channeling Yoda, which is like, don't try, just do. But I think in this context, at least attempt things, learn from them. And that's what you learn that very early in your life, and you're doing it even today. Where there is, I think that's the gap, is people that struggle don't realize that it's just about trying things and figuring out what's working and throwing away what doesn't.
And then maybe even retrying what doesn't.
Right.
Because when you're practicing a jump, I did gymnastics before too. And when you're practicing, you do the same thing over and over and over. And then you're like, okay, I got it. Or maybe I'll try something else. Like, I'm not the best at spins, but I had to get to a certain competency to pass my exams when I was in teaching. Because you have to teach 360s and 180s and stuff. And flips are what I'm better at. You know?
Yeah.
And so then I can do more flips, do big, beautiful flips, right? And that's what I would stick to. So there's certain competencies that you need to a certain point. And like, it's okay to not be fabulous at it, but know what you're really great at. So when we have people apply for the program, they do their Strengths Finder. And
love it.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things in the world.
Yeah.
Strengths Finder. Search it if you're watching this.
Yeah, Gallup Strengths Finder. So mine, I'm futuristic, strategic, maximizer, activator, and belief.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So I can help people, and this is, so to get over this gap, chasm, Grand Canyon, whatever, is to be around people who can support you in your strengths and see where some of your gaps are and consistently iterate with you and hold you accountable. So whether it's mastermind accountability groups or joining a class like the Grow program, is to have that constant like reflection of what's going on so that you're not just in this little corner by yourself working on something. And so for me, when I took Happy Camper into the Grow program, it's like, okay, this is not sustainable for me right now. I'm actually going to set it to the side. And it's something that I'm still committed to impacting 1 billion lives with, and it's on the back burner right now. You know, because that's, and I don't think it's a failure, and I use the model all the time, but it's not how I make money. You know, and so if I didn't have that group, and if I didn't have that process that I was going through, even though I knew all the content, knew the information, I wouldn't have come to that conclusion. And so, like, operating in a bubble isn't going to get you anywhere. And it's that, like, that's why I like Founders Life Community, is because then you get to operate in a bigger bubble with more people hanging out, playing around.
Yeah. No, it's been really cool to see it take off, and just, you know, people being active on there, the influencer series that we have, which you've contributed to. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Looking forward to more of them. You know, but just like, that's why I started it, because I felt like that was missing, and we needed our own space to kind of bubble, if you want to use that. We needed our own bubble or area to bounce off of and learn from each other and make mistakes, or like, oh, you're doing that, like learning from your mistakes, you know. And I think that that's so important. And you know, I guess one of the last questions it would be is, if you could go back, you've been through a number of projects and startups. Is there like one or two things that really, like, if you could redo it, you would say, man, I wish I could redo that. I wish I could not make that mistake. Or is there something in there that's just like, you wish you knew now, or you wish you knew then, you know now? Yeah.
So when I sold my first company, Baby Legs, I was intimidated by the big, huge document, like stack of documents. So we've got like 600 papers, all in legal. And I had a broker involved in the deal, and I didn't read every line myself. And I trusted that my people had my back. And it turns out that there was one of the deal points made it so I had a $50,000 liability a ways down the road
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And when you get hit with a $50,000 liability, it's like that really hurts. And what I got from that is like I need to read everything. So as much as, like the shiny object, typical entrepreneur, squirrel, and you don't want to pay attention to all the details, I had to in that.
Yeah.
And so all the documents or anything after that, I read. And then I make sure I understand. And if I have to get a lawyer with me to read through everything, I will take the time to do that and be diligent, because that's something that I didn't do. And when I sold the company, I didn't expect this part of it, but when I was in the office in New York, I started crying.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to cry now. And I couldn't stop crying. I was crying uncontrollably through the whole deal signing. And I couldn't believe it because I don't know, I didn't feel like I was losing something, but it was just it was such an emotional experience.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't how I had anticipated things would go.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I posted something to Facebook, and a friend from Seattle was in New York, John Chen, which you may have run into him. And he was at a hotel that was just a couple blocks from where I was with his kids at the swimming pool. And he said, why don't you come over and we'll talk? And like that moment, and having somebody who is in my network, having somebody there for me in that, like, that it was kind of a low point. I mean, it was just somewhere that I didn't ever anticipate being. Right. And we have so many of those, peaks and valleys. And that he was there for me was so important. If I didn't have that community that we were in together, I wouldn't have known. He wouldn't have known I was there. We'd have no idea. And that connection is so important.
Wow. That's a beautiful story, and I look forward to our next conversation that we'll record to even go deeper in that. But we are out of time.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Nicole. This has been amazing.
Cheers.
Enjoy.